and welcome to our next sessions. Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed the networking hour. We're going to kick off the next portion. Oh, here we go. We're going to kick off the next portion of the session with a few sessions about talent hosted by We Localize. And I would just welcome to the panel, we have Alexander from Translational, Ellen from CSA Research, James from Uber, and Lucy from the Canadian Government Translation. And then hosting the session, we have Frederic from We Localize. So Frederic, I'd like to start out with a question for each of you in the panel, specifically about what you have done over the course of the pandemic. What new hobby, habit, or interest have you been able to develop as a result of the current pandemic situation?
New hobby. I would say I just enjoy doing the hobbies I like instead, and have more time for it. Although I was working, so it was like a bit business as usual. But we developed this really addiction to playing board games with my family every night, getting together after work, and we were playing board games, and that was great fun.
We've also done a lot of board games. That's nice to have the family time, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
All right, with that, we'd like to get started. And I will share my screen for you guys.
Okay. Hi, everyone. And thank you for attending our exciting panel on transforming talent and how we are going to work at collaborating to reshape the future of our industry. As you can see, we have a great selection of panelists today coming from the very different horizons of the localization industry. And we are very excited to discuss how all these actors of the industry will and can collaborate together to shape the next generation of talent in order to build a strong future for the language industry. Feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box, and we will try to answer as many as possible as we go and within the time frame that we have. So first, I am going to turn to Hélène. Hélène, you are playing a key role at CSA Research, analyzing and processing data for the localization industry. I would like to ask you, what are the changes that you have seen emerging in the past 10 years?
Yes, thank you, Frederic. So we see 4 core elements to take into account when talking about the future of the talent in this industry. So first, there's changes in roles. So there are different examples here that we have on screen. So for example, for project manager, automation means using new skills, a lot of new client and vendor facing skills that are becoming important. Salespeople, marketers, there's a lot of changes right now because of COVID, where before they could do the work with meeting in person, that was very important to the process. Now they have to learn to prospect and sell remotely, requires different skills. Translators, there's also some changes. Those that are reluctant to work with MT kind of end up being replaced by subject matter experts that then change the role, if you want, of translators. Then if we can move on to the next box, we also have changes kind of at the educational level. Can I get a little click for the next box? There we go. So, you know, it's nothing new here, but it's really hard for academia to produce ready-to-go talent because the technology in this field is advancing so fast. Even us in research, you know, it's every day you discover something new, and it's really hard then to have those teaching programs to keep up with that. On top of it, some countries are reducing their investment in language education, the United States, for example, and that means a reduction in talent that comes from language studies. And then also think about internships, which play such a crucial role for new talent to get some experience. With COVID, onboarding and coaching is very difficult, and therefore there's much less of that happening right now. And then the next box here, if we can bring it up, should be about the price pressure. So what we're finding in our research is that it's not so much a shortage of talent overall, but it's really more a shortage of qualified resources that are willing to work within the budgets of LSPs and buyers. And that in turn means that companies are willing to employ lesser skilled resources, but then in turn they need to spend more time training them from the ground up. And then, not to deny that there's a talent gap, there is definitely one, but we find that it tends to be more limited to specific areas, two of them being languages with a limited number of speakers, and then immature markets where too few people are trained in the language roles and therefore not sufficient to fill all the roles within a specific country, for example.
Yes. Yes, we can definitely see a trend with our clients wanting to reach out to the smallest communities in the world. Lucy, what are the challenges that you have faced in this context at the Canadian Government Translation Bureau?
Thank you, Frédéric. Actually, I will pick up on Hélène's fourth point. Certainly, limited speakers and qualified suppliers is an issue for Canada, particularly in the area of Indigenous languages. There are approximately 90 Indigenous languages and dialects spoken in Canada. And Canada has enacted a new legislation to protect, promote, and revitalize Indigenous languages. And this was a year ago. There are a few political commitments made, and the Translation Bureau of Canada is responsible to increase the availability of translators and interpreters in these languages. So we've had to be very creative in our efforts to find qualified language speakers, language service providers in some language combinations. And I think this is an area where cross-sectoral collaboration can be very, very useful.
James, can you confirm this challenge on the client side, wanting to reach out to the smallest communities and having to localize content in rare languages?
Yes, thank you, thank you. You know, at Uber, right, especially we as a private company, finding those talents for rare languages, in the past, right, we were looking at Khmer, Burmese, Malayalam, and also Canada for India. It's a bit more difficult to find, especially on a qualified linguist that either has a language degree or proficient enough to pass our test as a translator. As Helene mentioned, there is a gap in the talent pool in some region. Price pressure is one, and also the language education degree that just not fast enough for private sector to reach out. Not to mention, it took us months to close to about a quarter, both internally and externally, to reach out to various LSP, such as interview, tests, training by collaboration with vendors, just onboard, this talented linguist. But this is not all, right? Once they onboarded, the next step is retention. How do we keep them learn and grow? And this is something that we're trying to figure out and expand the area as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, James. Yeah. Actually, the advent of computer-assisted translation tools and automated translation and now neural MT has definitely changed the landscape of the localization industry in very, very little time. So yesterday's talents are definitely no longer the ones that we are seeking today. Lucy, how do you think we should build the next generation of talents?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Very good question. I think the new challenge that we have, not only in Canada, but I think globally, is certainly how to provide new translators with concrete experience so that they can deliver high quality translations, but while leveraging all of the new automation and AI tools. You mentioned neural machine translation as well. It was widely recognized some time ago in Canada that it took about 5 years for a language professional to reach his or her full potential. And we don't have the luxury of time anymore. So in Canada, what we are doing is we are collaborating with universities to give students internship opportunities, to give them concrete experience with our AI and MT, and also all the techno-linguistic tools that exist today. And they are also supported by our most seasoned translators. So we know that academia has a huge and important role to play to update their curriculum, but also employers have a role. So whether that be a public organization or a private LSP, We really need to make sure that we have strong and consistent training and coaching so that graduates can hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's definitely where collaboration takes place. James, how are these fast changes experienced at Uber on the client side beyond the linguist role, but at a wider scale for the different roles that you have in the company?
Yes. So, within Uber, we have this role rotation, role adaptation. And in a way, it's becoming a norm now for most of the tech company out here because it is difficult to find a candidate that does everything. And, this applies to the language industries as well, because hiring becomes difficult and there is no one-on-one match in terms of the company growth. And the hiring additional resource within the localization side. And we know that the localization workflow is very complex, and those complexity require some sort of education or some sort of training. And because that, one example that I can, actually two examples I can give you is that in the past we have a role called the language manager, and I'm sure this applies to most clients as well. Because of the role adaptation, they are involving to become a LQ PGM or the localization quality program manager to increase the scope, not only to handle language within their domain like quality, score, maybe the KPI as well, but managing the program within the language category by working with the UI, UX team, content author, and tech writer to improve the overall English sentence for the upstream. Also, second example is our localization program manager. They are driven by this, limit because we have so many tools that I'm working with in technology, adding week by week, month by month to our roadmap. And of course, I believe that Aaron mentioned that in our previous session that AI does not drive away or drive away most of the role here. It's that we are expecting them to learn and grow to various roles. Where the role adaptation is a requirement to those individuals who take on more role and that responsibility by collaborating with others. As I mentioned, that tool come online, and then these people, these PMs need to be ready to adapt this tool and ready to do their job so that they can use that information to train our junior member who can also handle easier tasks so that senior member can focus on bigger picture. We want all team to contribute, not just senior member working on certain project and junior member does not. We want to be equal as much as we can.
Thank you, James. We got one question regarding what you just said earlier. Somebody says that I think you said one of the contributions to the talent gap was the length of time most language students take to get their education. So the question is, do we know of any ways we can shorten the curriculum without losing the quality of education? I don't know if you want to take this, James, but anybody can, anybody, Alex, Lucy, Elaine can take this, or James maybe?
So your question is referring to about the talent shortage, or sorry, I didn't get the last one?
Somebody said that he heard you say that the talent gap, one of the contributions to the talent gap was the length of time most language students take to get the education.
Mm-hmm.
So upskilling basically in universities. So do we know any ways we can shorten the curriculum without losing the quality of education?
And that is a good question. I wish that our team in Uber to reach out to academia for working with students, but we do have conference within Uber to host, such as working localization as one example, to bring in those talented individual who are actually about to graduate or in the mid school to able to learn about what is the localization. And hopefully that if I have time, I can talk about what we also have this new role called LPC, or localization project map coordinator. This is the entry role level where anybody who can apply to can learn about hands-on experience on handling localization complex projects, to a quality, to even operation side, so that we can teach them and able to excel their role.
Basically, learning on the job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing more with the same resources is the future of our industry, not just the industry, but the market in general. Learning, upskilling, reskilling are the keys to the future of the localization industry, because we have exhausted pools and can no longer compete for talents since this is completely counterproductive. we need to be more creative and rethink the way we grow talents for the future needs of the industry. Alex, you are CEO of Translational, and I was wondering, what is it that you have put in place to overcome the shortage in talent in your company?
Yes, I always actually intuitively felt that something was wrong with the translator training. And there seemed to be a gap between what was being taught in universities and the skills that I really needed my employees to have as professional translators, managers, localizers, etc. So I began studying this gap to shed light on the extent to which the academics and professionals' views on translator competence diverge. To review the reasons for the existence of the academia-industry gap, we should mind cognitive and organizational differences of both stakeholders. On the cognitive level, scholars seek personal prestige and recognition rather than the truth, while industry representatives search for profit, which is quite natural. And on the organizational level, industry and academics have conflicting confidentiality issues, I should say, information flows, institutional policies, or property rights. What is problematic is the lack of interface between the two branches, which would permit them to inform each other and thus converge rather than notoriously diverge. So, the industry placed emphasis on practical translation, involvement on industry representatives, soft skills development, CAT tools training, domain-specific translation, and native language skills. That was their choice. And an urgent need was expressed by academics for relevant teaching materials, glossaries, and free CAT tools that could be used in teaching process. The study and its outcome were presented for all stakeholders. I even presented an article in Multilingual several years ago. So it resulted in 19 universities enrolled into collaboration, including more than 30 teachers, 35 to be precise, more than 1,000 students within the period of 5 years of such cooperation. So 21 courses in translation technologies, 2 courses of translation management in these 19 universities, and of course ongoing internships programs of Translatel and partner universities. We actually have internships 3 times a year. That's it.
Thank you, Alex. We can see in the last, say, 9 months how creative we had to be and reimagine our everyday work. So in Localize, we have launched, well, not in the last 9 months, but in a couple of years, a new program which is called Transforming Talent, and it aims at upskilling, specializing and preparing talents for the future needs of the industry. But also, because of the worldwide pandemic, we were forced to rethink the way we utilize talents in the company. And we implemented what we call the talent exchange. So we actually shifted people from one place where there was a low workload to a place where it was much higher. And we decided that we would keep this initiative and this talent exchange because it worked really well. And people were actually very enthusiastic about it, learning new skills, discovering new areas. So all in all, we have to reimagine the way we do things. Hélène, you told me that you heard a very similar experience in another LSP. Can you tell me a little bit more of what they have put in place to tackle all these changes?
Yes, so I actually have 2 examples, one that worked well, one that didn't work as well. So the one on the LSP side was a situation where a client needed no longer the in-house translation team of the LSP, and it was their biggest client, but they all of a sudden needed multilingual transcription. So the CEO of the LSP asked all their in-house linguists to upskill and become a multilingual transcriptionist. This is the one that didn't go well. They all refused. So unfortunately, he was in a situation where he had to terminate all of them and replace them with a new batch of linguists that was willing to learn the skill. So that's kind of the downsides when people aren't cooperating with the upskilling thought. And then a more positive story, I was talking very recently to a buy-side organization, and they had language leads, and instead of having them continue first focusing on reviews, they decided to really leverage what they were calling their super skills. And there are skills that they develop that go above and beyond the job. So one of them was focusing on SEO, which is search engine optimization. One of them was focusing on script writing for efficiencies, things like that. So those are things for everybody to consider as opportunities in the future.
Yeah, that's really interesting experiences, and definitely some work, some don't, obviously, but it's definitely worth trying. So we do have to prepare our linguistic talent pool for emerging languages, economies, technologies, and adapt to new service types, new techniques. And in doing so, we can respond better to our client needs. We become agile in that we have the right linguist focused and ready to go. Lucy, would you agree that all the key players in the localization industry must collaborate to grow, upskill talent, and meet the needs of global brands now and in the future?
I fully agree with that, Frédéric, actually, because it's clear to me when I speak to people, not only in Canada, in North America, but across the globe, that those who do not keep, the greater picture in mind are bound to fail. We all want to succeed. I think whether we be a private LSP, technology company, or a private, publicly owned LSP like ourselves at the Translation Bureau in Canada. But the puzzles become so complex nowadays that to work in silo is bound to fail. The best way, I think, for language service providers to succeed is to collaborate with all sectors of the language ecosystem. So what that means, how that translates in Canada, is that we are taking a leadership role to drive collaboration between government, academia, professional associations, and buyers, because we really want to stay ahead in order to generate the creative energy needed to reach the next level. A quick reminder that in Canada, there is a constitutional obligation to communicate with citizens in the 2 official languages, English and French. Also, finally, I'd say that in Canada, but also globally, the aging population, as well as the shrinking labor force, is providing a great driver for cross-sectoral collaboration. It really is in everyone's best interest to generate enough talent to feed this growth.
Definitely. James, on your side, what do you think drives the need for collaboration?
Yes, collaboration is huge, important. I told my teams and the member within our team, even a different conference, collaboration helps 2 main objectives, right? The first thing is to solve problems. We all know that already. The second thing is, of course, right, the opposite, which is bring us together. By us, I meant people that have a similar issue or that are trying to solve the same problem in the same room. It's nearly impossible for one person to know everything, and we all agree with that. And of course, to solve anything, you could solve something, but just not everything as a team. By collaborating, your ideas and many other ideas come together as one. And because you're in the same room, right? The same room with everybody else, you're not only learning from yourself, but from others as well, such as experiences, expertise, vision, proposal, and any use cases or skill that could expand your knowledge that you just had before you enter the room to lay out a new foundation. And by collaborating, you bring everybody together that have the potential to increase, of course, retention rate is something that we're trying to, address, because there are attrition and we want to retain that. And of course, as a bonus, we put in people that want to work. As a human being, we all agree that socialization with collective mind is the best way to connect to what's matter to people, especially at the workplace. And after all, right, we want to work with people that we trust and to understand and respect to our point of view. Trust builds relationship, and group relationship builds retention, and that will feed into individual growth. And I'm sure that everybody will appreciate that in the long term.
I have 2 questions here from the same person. The first one is, COVID led many veterans back to the job market. as representatives of organizations that have the hiring power, what do you think about 45-plus-year-old people with 20-plus years of experience looking for senior jobs these days? And how hireable are they compared to young people with a proper ethic and technical savviness?
I can answer that from at least from private sector of my company. It's I think it's not the matter that how old are you or how smart are you. Is that were you willing to learn? How excited are you to apply for this job? Or you applied for this job because you know what, I need some income, I need some money, but I hate this job. I just have to apply for it. Or like, oh my God, I love this job because you know what, I don't have a degree on translation or even leading the program, but I'm so excited to learn on how can I provide my services 20 years in the military or in different style of work ethic. How can I apply myself to this job so that I can help you, help the team, and help the company? We're looking for growth and we're looking for opportunity, but at the same time, we want you to be excited to know that you will love your job, not hate your job in the long term.
Yeah, definitely, James, that makes sense. No matter what, no matter who you are and how old you are, and but the dedication and motivation behind people and wanting to perform well and excited about the job is definitely what we want to look for. Mm-hmm. Anybody else would like to, Lucy, Hélène, Alex, any ideas on this question?
Frédéric, if I may, actually, I think that question is really a good one. Like everyone can participate to, growing growth, and particularly those people that have a lot of experience. What we're seeing emerging, and Hélène touched on this in her opening kind of comments, is there are new roles emerging for a language service provider. It's no longer comprised of a majority of translators like linguists. We need people with business acumen. We need people with client service skills and experience. And we also need people to apply their judgment, professional judgment. So we're in a world now that all of the text is being treated through either a translation memory or an NMT. So it's really a post-edition world. So you need those people with experience. And so I would say that roles are emerging, and there is organizations, particular the public sector organizations need more business savvy, different kinds of roles, different kinds of competencies. So I think it's very exciting. It's an exciting field to consider.
And I'd like to add to this that there are definite opportunities, especially on the LSP side, for more advanced roles. So it really is going to depend on the skills of those people. Age doesn't matter so much. It's really the skills that they have. The problem comes more when you have people that are applying for lower level jobs that are kind of often, just after college type jobs and want the salary of somebody at the end of their career. So there needs to be an alignment between the skills and the type of job they're looking for.
Yeah. Thank you. I will go back to, there's another question here. I just want to go a little bit further on the collaboration, and then I will come back to this question. Hélène, back to you. How would you see the collaboration across all the roles in the industry help bridge the talent shortage?
Yeah, so there is some collaboration at some levels. When you think about linguist position or some project management type position, there is some level of collaboration, but there are also areas where there's close to no collaboration. Think about MT post editors, salespeople, marketers, remote interpreters, AI specialists, and some of those roles are considered differentiators for the language service provider. So they're not going to want to collaborate because that's really where their strength is. But the reality of it is that this industry is very famous for, poaching staff from one company and the other. So the knowledge ends up with the competitors anyway. So there would be an incentive for people to talk openly about how to develop these skills instead of keeping it in their own little corner, because it leaks anyways in some fashion to the competition.
Yeah, I think we have come to an end of poaching because it's kind of well known in business that it's counterproductive, and that's no longer viable as well, because there is as much as you can poach, and as much as you can use the talents that are existing, but that's why the need for shaping the talents is so important. Alex, as professor of your local university, as well as running an LSP, how do you experience the need for collaboration between LSPs and academia?
Mm-hmm. Yes, as a CEO of a translation company with over 20 years of translation business, I interact with new translators practically all the time. And as a professor at our local university, as you mentioned, in Ukraine, I have first-hand experience with translator training. It's a kind of seesaw experience, as I call it. So I interact with both groups and see both sides of the coin. Industry is not satisfied with talents, and academia is not sure if they prepare the right graduates. Both sides may or may not drive this need. So you can hardly manage to cooperate across all the roles. There is little quantitative data on translators' professional profile that cannot be described as an ad hoc and subjective. The subjective approach, sometimes adopted by teams trying to cooperate with academia, doesn't examine the extent to which such employers' perspectives are compatible with the views of academia. So industry-academia surveys can work wonders if they are appropriately planned, distributed, and analyzed. And one of them I did, as I mentioned. So the analysis provides a way of selecting professional competences to focus on by calculating each area's leverage, and it may be used as a route to delivering sustained performance improvement, actually. That's it.
But we all know that localization and translation skills will continue to evolve. That's what we've always seen in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Things never stay the same, and the COVID-19 pandemic has been a true example of how industries and people can adapt to change. It's actually quite amazing to see how we can do like chameleon and imagine and reimagine solutions out of the box, and because there is no other choice. Many initiatives have emerged to resolve the issue of talent shortage and build a talent ecosystem. Hélène, can you tell us about interesting collaboration initiatives you have observed?
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, we've talked already about internships, and that plays a significant role. But to talk about some other ones, one thing we've seen at quite a few language service providers is that they have some of their executives go serve a role in academia somewhere to help improve the hands-on experience of students. And I personally did that myself for many years when I was on the LSP side, and you get the first pick of the litter to then push them towards internship for you. So it's a great way to bring talent to your company. Another very creative thing that we see rather frequently, especially in the United States, is interpreting service providers that build a secondary brand to train interpreters locally, because it's languages where there's no interpreters in that area, or because they want to train them to work in a virtual environment. So those are situations that occur where they have to create the second business entity because of the employee versus freelancer regulation. And then we can't forget all the efforts done by the association. So GALA has the talent program, the Localization Institute and TAUS have some translation comments, also has some knowledge sharing initiatives. So there are things out there, there are tools out there to help with this collaboration.
Yeah, I think this is really coming along with the question that Constantin asked earlier. He's saying that arguably the best academia to industry collaboration has been brought about by industry associations in China. Specialized partnerships, conferences, awards, universities entering into joint enterprises with businesses. Can the Western world catch up? That's a very good question.
I think that the Western world is already trying to catch up. I remember some 5-7 years ago, I couldn't even imagine industry talking so much about industry-academia cooperation. So it was only my dream that such questions would emerge. So I don't think that things are doing so bad. We are catching up. Things are getting better. I can't say that no problems exist and all problems are resolved, but things with industry academia cooperation now, for sure, are much better than they were some 5 years ago. And associations like GALA and others are really helping with this. Another thing is that such problems cannot be resolved fast. Academia, the essence of academia is such one that they are very slow, really. So we have to wait for them to perceive what industry is saying, and probably then things will be improving.
Yeah, slow, but I believe with the support of LSPs, the support and interaction of clients, and then academia, government institutions, things could be more integrated and maybe going faster because there will be more awareness. So that's maybe the way we could work it out.
Mm-hmm.
James, on your side, how do you approach collaboration at Uber?
Yes, yeah, as I mentioned, that collaboration is so important. So within Uber, I'm also leading the vendor management side as well. We collaborate with various LPS, more like localization program, but the vendors, MLVs and organization. And in that communication and throughout the learnings, we actually open a new role called LPC, which I just mentioned, a localization project coordinator. And in this role, right, you can sort of have the role rotation where you can handle the localization projects, operation like myself, or being a language manager. Once you pick up this role, you can start to put your hands on the actual localization projects, by working directly with the experienced or expert localization PM. This collaboration will help. Because of this collaboration, it creates the LPC role for us. And with this LPC role for us, right, we create more talent people coming to our team, able to expand their scope. And once that happens, right, they can continue to work as a project manager and then reach out to, different company that they can work with. Because at the end of the day, right, as this whole seminar session mentioned, how do we upskill and retain talents? And this is something that, as an Uber, we're doing that in order to, open the communication, and also working on the vendors. This sort of communication and collaboration increase the productivity, provides a positive change, and encourage innovation. And that's something, we have been nurturing with our LPC program, and not just LPC, but our roles within the Uber localization team, and encourage them to take online classes, attending conference like GALAs, and of course, like taking new program and trying new tricks or risk or anything that they would like to take. Big bold bets. That's what I call it. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Alex, a few years ago, you presented your internship program at GALA. How successful has this program been? Because now you have some kind of a distance with it and you had time to implement it. Have you implemented also other collaboration strategies?
Yeah, sure. The internship program, Enter Intern, this is the way we call it, Enter Intern, successfully presented at GALA some years ago, still works wonders. So we propose a simple and pretty straightforward 8-step roadmap to help you to conduct meaningful internship at your agency with little effort from your side, which is very important for business, but many long-term benefits for you, for the student, and for the industry as a whole. If you're planning to conduct internships, you're welcome at your company. So you're welcome to use this process, which is simple and doesn't require much time and effort from your side, but is hugely beneficial for students to gain real-life perspective on the industry. So internships are usually seen only as a compliance sieve for rising translators. We at Translatel claim that internships are a kind of translation company endurance test and an efficient way to successfully meet the demands of language service industry. There are some definite reasons for proper organized internship. Apart from pure recruiting and quantitative changes, the main ones are social responsibility and competitive environment within the company. So Translatel takes a broad approach to internships in our company. An intern practically can act as a translator, manager, proofreader, quality assurance manager, and so on, practically any role. This strategy helps to prevent withdrawal of an applicant from the language service industry and accommodate the student with the most suitable position in the industry. It should be noted also that this methodology is efficient not only for students who are on internship, but also for inside qualification courses. So we are doing quite well. And I know already 5 companies in Europe who are also practicing this very model and are doing quite well with this.
Thank you, Alex. Lucy, the Bureau's advisory committee is a great example of collaboration between key actors of the industry. Can you tell us a little bit about how you interact?
Yes, thank you. So we have a government and language sector advisory committee in Canada, and it is comprised of representatives from small, medium, and large language service providers, so private sector. We have professional associations represented, so the Canadian Language Sector Association, the Interpreter Association, and members of the federal government. And really the aim is to work together through this huge evolution. So how do we deliver high quality services while leveraging all of these new technologies? How do we remain relevant and viable? So there are 3 really key objectives that none of us alone have the answers to, but one is trying to having a conversation about defining the competencies of the language expert of the future. We know that we need, and other panelists today have talked about the importance of, increasing our capabilities in the area of project management, technology integration, business acumen. So that's one area. The other area that we're having discussions on and learning from each other from is how will we measure productivity in a world where NMT is prevalent? How do I do it for my employees, but also how do I do it for my freelancers? And thirdly, we are having discussions about what would be an appropriate contractual vehicle to fairly compensate our freelancers, for instance, but also how do we charge our clients fairly for the work that is done in a world where automation, translation memories, AI, and MT are prevalent. So we're talking about what unit of measure would work. Is it by hour, by day, by task? And surprisingly, there is no consensus. And if anyone on this panel or participating has any evidence base or information to help guide our work, that would be welcome. But it's really important that cross-sectoral collaboration is key to getting informing each other on the way forward.
Definitely. I have one question coming up, and I'm aware of the time. So the question is, how much collaboration is there between academia, private and public sector around research in our industry? This is standard practice in other industries. So it's a big question. I don't know if we can answer this in 1 minute, but maybe outside this panel, there could be some interaction. And so I don't know if somebody would be interested in answering Alessandra Benazzi on this question. I think it's very
I would probably just say a couple of words that there is only a start of such cooperation. If you noticed, Gala last year started absorbing universities into the association for free. And this is a very great stride. So this is the beginning. I think we need a bit more time to be able to touch something precise that this cooperation produced. But it takes place. We just need a bit more time. I know it because I understand that in academia, changes are taking place very, very slowly. So we have to wait.
Yeah, but there is a lot of change at all levels. So
yeah,
we have a great audience of localization professionals today, and I just want to thank them for listening to us and attending this panel. So I'm going to ask our panelists if there is just one piece of advice that you want our audience to take away from this panel, what would it be? Hélène.
So it would definitely be this investment in vendor management and human resources functions. The language service providers who struggle tend to be the one with weaker positions, or even better, create positions like the one that Frédéric has at We Localize, which is devoted to promoting the talent of the future.
Alex?
Okay, I could speak for hours on this, but if it's only one piece of advice, yes, step into shoes of your main stakeholder. In this case, it's academia and graduates for industry, and to find win-win solutions for successful collaboration and developing talents. That's it.
Lucy?
Collaboration, again, we've talked about it a lot, but between all sectors of the language sector in your area, really to help prepare the new generation of translators.
Okay, James?
Sorry, I was unmuted. I know Helene, Alex, and Lucy said it well. Collaboration, between the private sector and the vendor to build training program is a must, because this is where client has the opportunity to know what we are working as, what we're looking for. And in this case, we were able to support the vendor side in terms of creating talents, build talents pool, improve the training, and I'm sure there are other collaboration that we can do to help and excel and upskill the vendor, even the linguists that we're working with. But thank you, these are great questions.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope we have covered some of this big topic about filling gaps in the talent pool, and also bridging the gaps that we see in our industry by collaborating all together. Jody, back to you.
Yes, thank you all. That was really informative and very helpful. Lots of participation in the chat, and please feel free to reach out to the panelists